What's up everybody, and welcome to a new video. And in this video we're going to continue to go over my notes for this source control section. So in the previous video we left off at this note about inspecting the commit history, and now let's get to the note which is about creating commits. And here the first note is that when files are added, modified or deleted, then they get listed in this changes section here. So to show you that, I have prepared this initial repo folder, and here I've opened that in a workspace. So now let's make some changes to this workspace. So therefore let's first simply delete this file here. Then let's open here file 2, and here let's make some changes within the file. So let's transform this into 100 here. Then let's delete this line, and then let's add a new line with a 5. And then lastly, the last change is to add a new file. So let's call this file3.py. And now if I go to the source control activity here, then you can see that those files are now listed here in this changes section. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate for this node. And here I also have a side note, which is about the additionally provided info about those changes. So if we go back to this other workspace, the additionally provided information is, for example, here on the source control icon, you can see how many pending changes there are. Then here in the sidebar, you can see if a specific file was modified, if it is untracked, i.e. if it was added, or if it was deleted. And the same indicators you also have here in the tabs. So this file was modified, this is untracked, and this here was deleted. And then the last additional information are these gather indicators here. So this line here was modified, this one was removed, and this one here was added. So those are the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to this first note here. Okay, so then the next note is about managing the changes via the different toolbars. So to show you those toolbars, let's go back to this other workspace. And the toolbars that I'm talking about are here. When you, for example, hover over the files, you have a toolbar for the individual file. And if you hover over this changes section, you also have here a toolbar. So let's first go over the toolbar for the individual files. So here the first option that you have is to open the file. So if this would be closed, for example, then you don't need to go to the Explorer to open the file, but you can just click this button here. Then next here you can discard the changes. So if you click that, then you get asked if you want to discard it. So let's discard them for now. And then those changes are removed again. So let's add them in. So let's make this again 100. Then delete this line and add a new line. And then here the last option is this plus sign. And with that you can then stage those changes. So they then get put into the stage changes section, i.e. the staging area. And here you then have the option also to unstage those changes again. So then let's go to this toolbar for this changes section. So you have a button to open the changes. So this opens the diffs for all those changes that are here in the changes section. And here you can also, for example, stage a specific file. So if I stage here file 2, then it gets put into the staged changes section. And then the next option is here to discard all changes, or then here lastly you can also stage all changes. So if you click that, then all the files are put into the staged changes section. And here you also have a toolbar. So here you can open the staged changes. So this also again opens the diffs for all the changes in this section. And here you can then also unstage a specific file. So if I unstage file 2, then it gets put back into the changes section. And then the last option that you have here is to unstage all changes. So if you do that, then they get put back into all files get put back into this changes section. So those are all the things that I want to mention with respect to this node here. Okay, so then the next node is about writing the commit message and then creating the commit. So to do that, let's simply add all changes into the staging area. And then here in this input field, you can write your commit message. So you can write the title of the commit message, and if you press enter, you can then also create the body of the commit message. And then you can simply click this blue button here to create the commit. Alternatively, what you also could do is, like it says here, use Control Enter to create a commit. And here, just as a side note, if you create a commit when there's no message here, then this will open this commit edit message file, and then here you can also create your commit message. So title, and then here body. And then simply press this check mark to create that commit. Okay, so that's what I want to mention with respect to this note here. Okay, so now let's go over these side notes here. And the first one is about opening the Diff Editor by clicking a file. So there, to show you that, let's go back to the workspace and let's make here a change to this file. And then here, if you click the file, then this Diff Editor opens. And here, when the file is in this changes section, then the left side of the Diff Editor is read-only, while the right side is actually editable. However, if the file is in this stage changes section, then both sides are just read-only. Okay, so let's unstage this here again. And those are the things that I wanted to mention with this first side note here. Okay, so then the second side note is about changing the most recent commit. And here you have two options. You can either amend the commit or you can undo it. So let's first see how you can amend a commit. Therefore, let's go back to our other workspace. And here, let's simply stage our file 2. And then let's create our commit message, which is commit amended. And now, instead of clicking this commit button, what you can do is go to this arrow here and then use this commit amend option. And then you will see that this commit here will be amended. So let's do that. So commit amend. And now this is called commit amended. So that's how you can amend commit. And now let's see how you can undo a commit. So therefore you need to go to the command palette and then search for git undo. And then use this here, this undo last commit command. So what that does is puts all the changes back into the stage changes section, and then you can do whatever changes you want to do. So for example, and here also, by the way, you see that this commit amended commit was deleted. Okay, so now let's make our changes. So let's, for example, say that we don't want to include file 3 in this commit. And let's also say that here in file 2, we don't want this additional line. So let's delete that again. And then stage those changes. And now let's create our commit message, which is simply then commit 1. And then let's commit those changes. So now you can see here we have our created our commit 1. Okay, so those are the two options how we can change the most recent commit. Okay, so now let's get to the last side note, which is about staging only part of a file. And you can do that in different ways. You can do it via the command palette by using this command here, or you can do it via the gather indicators in these different editors here. So to show you how that works, let's go back to this workspace here. And here, let's first run the git undo last commit command again. And then here, let's unstage all those changes. And then here in our file 2, we had those 3 changes here, the modified line, the deleted line, and this added line. And now let's say we don't want to stage all of those 3 changes, but we only want to stage the first one and the third one. The way that you would do that with the command palette is to select those changes. So select the first one and then hold Alt and select the second one. And then run the command stage selected ranges. So let's run this. And now as you can see, this first change and this third change were added to the staging area. So if I click here this file, Then it opens the Diff Editor, and you can see the first change was added and this third change. And if I open here the Diff Editor for this file too, then you can see this still contains this deleted line. So that's how you can stage changes or stage only part of a file using the command palette. So let's unstage it now and show you how to use these gutter indicators. Namely, simply if you click them, then this inline diff here opens, and here you have then a toolbar to stage a change, revert a change, show next change, or show previous change. So let's stage this change. And then here, let's also stage this third change. And again, if I click here the Diff Editor, you can see that we have staged those two changes. So that's the first way in which you can use gutter indicators. The other way would be to open here the diff for this file too. And here in this diff, you also have these gutter indicators. So you can click that to add the first change and that to add the third. So that's the second option with gutter indicators. And the third option is, so let's unstage it here again. Here for the toolbar of this changes section, if you use this button here to open changes, here again, if you go to file 2, you have these gutter indicators. Okay, so those are the different ways how you can stage only part of a file. And with that now we've covered all the notes that I want to cover with creating commits. Okay, so now let's go over the next notes, which are about working with branches. And you can do that in two ways. You can do it via the command palette or via the status bar. So let's first have a look at how to do it with the command palette. And here are some of the useful commands that we're going to use. So to see those commands now in action, let's actually here start from a clean slate with this repo. So let's, with this folder, so let's delete that. And here I have the original folder. So let's open that in the new VS Code instance. Desktop, initial repo. So now let's see how you can work with branches using the command palette. So therefore, let's first create a new branch. So open the command palette with Ctrl+Shift+P and then search for git create. And then there's here git create branch. So let's give it a name. Let's call it dev. And here at the bottom, you can see that we have now dev checked out. So now let's create a change on this branch. So let's open here file 1. Let's add a new file, a new line. Then let's stage the changes and let's call this commit simply dev1. And now let's merge dev into main. So therefore we need to check out main. So again, Ctrl+Shift+P and then git checkout. Then you have here this command git checkout to, and let's check out to main. And now we want to merge dev into main, but before I do that, I want to create a new change here on main. So therefore let's open file 2 and let's also add a new line here. Then stage the changes and let's call this here main1. So commit. And now let's merge dev into main. So command palette, Ctrl+Shift+P, and then simply git merge. And then select which branch you want to merge. So let's choose dev. And then here you can see it creates a new commit called merge branch dev. And we have with that merge branch dev into main. Okay, so that was a merge without a merge conflict. So now let's see what a merge with a merge conflict looks like. So therefore, let's check out branch dev again. So let's say git checkout to and then dev. And now here, let's bring dev up to date. So we're gonna merge git merge main into dev. So let's do that. So now dev is up to date. So now let's here add a new line in file 1. So let's simply put here a 6. Then let's create a commit. So stage the changes. And then we call this dev2 commit. And now we go to the main branch. So git checkout2 main. And here on main, we also add a new line in file 1, but here we write a 60. Okay, so then let's stage that. And then this we're gonna call main2. So let's commit that. And now let's merge def into main. So command palette, git merge, and then we merge def into main. So this is then what a merge conflict looks like. So VS Code here highlights the current change in green and the incoming change in blue. So the incoming change from def. And then here in the sidebar, it puts this file here into this merge changes section. And then here in the commit message, it creates this message merge branch def. Okay, so now let's see how we can resolve this conflict. And you can do that in two ways. You can use those inline actions here, or you can use the merge editor. So let's first look at those inline actions. So you have the option to accept the current change. So the change from main. So if I click that, then we have here the 60. So now let's undo that. And here the next option is to accept the incoming change. So from def, that would be the 6. And you can also accept both changes. So the 60 and the 6. And then here lastly, you can compare the changes. So this opens the Diff Editor. So then once you selected here one option, then what you would need to do is here to stage the changes and then create the commit. So that's how you would resolve the merge conflict with these inline actions. Okay, so now let's see how we can resolve this conflict using the merge editor. So therefore simply click this button here. And here now that you can actually see it better, let me make this window here bigger. So this is what the merge editor looks like. Here on the top left, you have the incoming change. So this is from def. And here on the top right, you have the current change, which is from main. And then here at the bottom, you have the result. And here again, you have these inline actions. So you can accept the incoming change. And then here you can also remove it again. You can accept the combination of both with incoming first. So that would be then here 6 and 60. So let's remove those again. And here you can accept a combination with current first. So this is then 60 and 6. And another option that you have here, if you manually edit this file, then you get here the option to reset it to base. So then here also initially you have these toolbars. Additionally, you have these toolbars where you can accept all incoming changes or here compare with base. So this simply opens a Diff Editor. And then here in the result section, you have this option to reset. So, and here, just as a side note, this ignore option here, I think doesn't really do anything except taking away this yellow highlighting here. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to be having another effect. So those are the main options that you have here. And now just as a side note, one thing that I want to mention here is this overflow menu. Here you can switch between a mixed layout and a column layout. So with the column layout, the result is here in the middle, the incoming change is on the left, the current on the right. Then you also have the option to show the base at the top. So if you select that, then here the base is at the top, or you can also put it into the center. And then lastly, you have this option to show non-conflicting changes. However, this doesn't do here anything because there are no conflicting changes. Okay, so now let's resolve this conflict. So let's simply accept the incoming change. Then here click simply the complete merge button. So now you can see file 1 is here in the staged changes section, and we already had this commit message. So now let's create a commit. And then here you can see we have our merge branch dev commit. So that's how you can resolve a merge conflict. Okay, so then the last command that I want to show is how to delete a branch. So therefore, let me here actually switch to showing all the branches. So here we have main and dev, and now let's delete branch dev. So therefore, open the command palette with Ctrl+Shift+P, and then git delete branch. So here you can then decide which one you want to delete. So let's use def, and then you can see def has been deleted. Okay, so those are the main commands that I wanted to show. And that's how you can use the command palette to work with branches. Okay, so now let's see what we can do via the status bar. Namely, in the status bar, you can see the name of the currently checked out branch. And if you click that, then you get this drop-down list with these two sections here. And so in the first section, you have these three different commands: create new branch from, and check out detached. So let's use this create new branch from command. And here you first have to select the ref to create the branch from. So let's select main. And then you can provide the branch name. So let's call it again simply def. And then here on the button you can see now we have created def and it's already checked out. And then here, if I click this again, here in the second section you can see all the available branches. And if you click one, you can then check out the respective branch. So let's check out main. So now we are on main again. And here, just as a side note, if there's a change here in any of the files, then there will be here an asterisk next to the branch name. So there now is this asterisk. Okay, so those are the things that I want to mention with respect to the status bar. And with that, now we have covered all the points that I wanted to mention with respect to working with branches. Okay, so now let's go over the notes for working with a remote. And here again, you have two options. You can do it via the command palette or via the toolbar of the graph view. So let's look first at how to use the command palette. And the commands that we're going to look at are fetch, pull, push, and sync. And here again, to show how those commands work, let's start from a clean slate for this folder here. So let's delete that. And here I have the original folder. So let's open that in a new VS Code instance. So open folder, desktop, initial repo. And now to work with a remote, we obviously have to first create it. And you can do that with this publish branch button here. Or you can also do it here in the graph view with this button, or here in the status bar. And here as a prerequisite, you obviously have to be authenticated with GitHub. And I've already done it. So let's publish here main. And let's publish it as a private repository. And then let's open the GitHub repo. So here is this repo. And now let's look at the first command, which is git fetch. So therefore, let's first create some changes on our remote here. So let's edit this file and add simply a new line. Let's call this then commit 1. So now let's commit those changes. And now let's go back to the remote, to the local repo. And here you can see we don't have commit 1 yet. So therefore, let's fetch the incoming changes. So open the command palette with git, with Ctrl+Shift+P, and then search for git fetch. And now if I run this, then you can see that origin main is now at commit 1. And here, just as a side note, if you go to the settings and then search for auto fetch, then here you can enable auto fetch and also adjust the period. But that was just a side note. So now let's actually pull those changes here into our local repo. Therefore, let me first open file 1 so that we can see that there are changes happening. So now let's pull those changes. So open the command palette and then git pull. Let's run this command. And then you can see now we get this 5 here, and main and origin main are again now at the same commit at commit 1. So now let's do the other thing, or do it the other way around. Let's push some local changes to the remote. Therefore, let's create some changes. So let's simply add here the 6. Then stage those changes. And let's call this commit 2. So let's commit that. And now main is 1 commit ahead of origin main. And now let's push those changes to the remote. So open the command palette with Ctrl+Shift+P and then git push. So now let's push those changes. And then you can see origin main is now also at commit to. And if we look here on GitHub and refresh the page, then you can see now here is also the 6. So now the last command that I want to show is git sync. So what that does is it first puts the incoming changes and then pushes the outgoing changes. So let's first create some incoming changes. So let's edit this file here again. Then 7, commit the changes. And this is commit 3. Then let's go back to the local repo. And here let's also create some changes, but we do them to file 2. So let's here add a new line. Then stage the changes. And let's call this commit 4. So let's commit. And now let's, before we sync the changes, let's actually fetch the changes from the remote. So let's again run git fetch. And then you can see that main is at commit 4 and origin main is at commit 3. And now to sync the changes, we have different options. So we can use the command palette, git sync. So we could use this command, or you can also use this button here. And here you also see that there is one incoming change and one outgoing change. Or you can use this button here in the status bar. So now let's sync the changes. And then what you will see is it creates here a merge. So now both of those branch main and origin main are now both again on the same or at the same commit. So this is how you can use the command palette to work with a remote. And you can do also the same thing with here with the toolbar in the graph view. So here you can fetch, pull, and push. So those are the main nodes that I wanted to cover with respect to working with a remote. Okay, so now let's go over the side nodes. And the first one is that the GitHub pull requests extension provides functionality to manage pull requests and issues directly from within VS Code. So if I go here to the extension activity and then search for pull request, then you can see here this GitHub pull requests extension. And then the other side note is that other hosting providers for remotes are also available via extensions. So for example, GitLab or Bitbucket. So for example, if I here search for GitLab, then you can see the respective extensions. Okay, so those are the side nodes. And with that, now we've covered all the nodes that I wanted to cover with respect to working with a remote. Okay, so now let's go over these last side nodes here. And the first one is about the overflow menu. And with that, I mean this one here. And here you can toggle on or off the different views. So for example, if you don't want to use this graph view, you can toggle it off and then it's not depicted anymore. And however, here there's a third view, which is called repositories. And a use case for that would be when you want to use multiple repositories simultaneously in just one workspace. So for example, here I have prepared a workspace that contains multiple repositories. And then here you can simply click the respective repository then to work with that. So you can see here how the graph view updates if I select a different repository. And here, just as a side note, here I'm always using Git, but you could also use other source control tools, source control management tools. Okay, so that's the first node, first side note about the overflow menu. Okay, so then the last side note is about this changes view toolbar. So with that, I mean this toolbar here, and here you can switch between view as tree and view as list. So to see what that changes, let me here make some changes again so that these files are listed. So the list view looks like this, and if I change it to the view tree view, it then looks like this. Okay, so that's the first option here. Then you can also then create a commit. You can refresh, and then here in the overflow menu you have different sorting options. So you can sort the changes by name, path, or status. And then here you have a list of all the available Git commands. And then here at the bottom, you have this show Git output command, and this simply opens the output panel, showing what commands are run under the hood, what Git commands are run under the hood. Okay, so with that now we've covered all the notes that I wanted to cover with respect to the source control. So with that we have reached the end of this video, and in the next video we're gonna then go over the notes for the debugger. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.